I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. We did a on-tap fundraiser for Lieutenant Jason Menard out of Worcester, Massachusetts. And we had just an incredible outpouring of support from sponsors and people that gave to the silent auction we did, and Tricky Tray, if you will. And of course, we had a lot of different types of prizes and to be won, and one of them was a remake of Worcester Ladder 5, which was the tiller that Jason Menard wrote on. A little backstory on that, Chief. I mean, you had built that truck previously.
Yeah, I always thought, because it was a Schmiel truck, and I thought it was cool looking.
Yeah.
So you're like, I want to build that, and I built it and sold it to somebody a long time ago, and then, when we heard about what had happened and seen what you guys were doing, for me to build a ladder truck from start to finish is about 100 hours, but because I've already built it, we could have probably eliminated about 40 hours of all that, that previous stuff. I build them just like the big ones do. 80% of the work is paperwork, from that standpoint. And, I tried to figure out a way to get it done and actually get back here with it.
Yeah.
And you're like, if we had 3 more days,
yeah.
You could have done it. And so, it's not the way that I'd hoped for, but I think it turned out exactly the way it needed to, because I even got comments from his family, on my Facebook account, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I just figured I was cutting wood in the shop and making some sawdust and having a good day. And sometimes you just don't understand that, who you reach and what the outcome can be, so.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart to be a part of that. You helped us raise over $17,000 that night for the family.
Fantastic.
And that was, I think, in our 2.5 years of doing this, I think that's probably the proudest moment I have going.
Everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio, back in the studio after
Finally.
How many months, Jeremy?
Too many.
Yeah, too many?
4?
Yeah, Tucker, we're not going to believe you because you're old. So
Listen, some of our last content was March in the studio, early March. So it's been several months of no shooting out of the studio. It is nice to be back and with an incredible guest today. And Rob, take it away. Introduce this gentleman to my left, please.
Yeah, we have Battalion Chief Phillip Beehler from Brighton Fire Department from Brighton, Colorado. So welcome, and also,
thank you.
What's the business that you have in the Instagram personality that a lot of our viewers are probably going to know you behind?
Six Finger Firemen Woodworking.
Which to me is just incredible. I mean, I'm sitting here already. So little backstory on this, Rob. Let's roll right into this. And Chief, I'm going to keep calling you Chief because Chief is a good name because it's well deserved. 34 years in the fire service today.
Yep, 34 today.
Gentlemen like you need to tell their stories, and they need to be heard because in 34 years, I'm sure you've done a couple things in your career.
Oh yeah.
And it is just so awesome to have you here today. Little backstory, the Chief and I hooked up on Instagram because of your page. Your apparatus that you build out of wood, and there's 2 of them sitting here in front of us, are just incredible.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do.
It's the detail orientation of these trucks is just off the hook. I mean, I can't get over it, and the aerial scope is a beaut, but the one that just catches my eye, obviously, is this gorgeous tiller over here. That's, National Fire Radio, we rolled out It's Tiller Time, a play on It's Miller Time, right? It's a play on words, and it caught a lot of attention early on when we released shirts and stickers on it and the theme. And Phil, you and I started chatting on Instagram,
right?
And then you had said, "Hey, are you interested in a tiller?" And I said, "Are you out of your mind?" Of course, I'm interested. And here we are today, several months into it.
Yeah, a little bit. We definitely had to build the Tiller Time truck. So
it's so cool, and we're gonna get to that, and we're gonna get to a lot of different things today because this is kind of a different story for us. We love interviewing the senior guy. We love interviewing guys that have been on the job for a long time to capture their stories, and you definitely have a story to tell today. And it's not just the firefighting aspect of it, but it's also your hobby outside of the firehouse, which is this woodworking, and so I'd love to get into that too, and so on. And Tucker, good to have you back, buddy.
Thanks.
It's been a go,
And I
man.
was isolated for a bit.
You were isolated for a bit, but New York, New Jersey area got hit pretty hard during this pandemic. So,
But
but
not take Tucker down.
I'm back, baby.
right. And so here we are. But to have you in the studio as our first episode back is just a true privilege and honor for us to have you here. So off we go. I think really where I want to start really is just kind of go back to the beginning. Brighton Fire District
Yeah.
in Colorado. So you're on a 2-week trip with your son Charles, who's off camera right now watching
Yep.
us. Like, what am I doing here, right?
Yeah.
And you got in the car 2 weeks or a week and a half ago, and you set out on this trip before COVID. This was all scheduled, right?
Yeah, we kind of, I think a little bit through it, it was, parts started falling into place. It was kind of crazy for me because every time something came up, it actually fit the day that we had nothing planned. So to me, it was meant to happen that particular
Okay.
way. We got in the car last Tuesday, and if this is what it's like to be a rock star, holy crap.
On the road, baby.
Yeah, it's like go from here and go from there and there, and we get to meet a lot of people, spend a lot of great time with a lot of great people. So it's definitely this is going to be a story from years to come.
That's cool.
Years to come. Yeah.
And so let's talk about this. Let's talk about how you got here today, right? You started your career 34 years. You told us today over lunch. You said it's actually been 34 years today that you've been on the line as a firefighter.
Yeah, started. Yeah, that wow, that was a long time ago. Horses they weren't in the station, though. A lot of guys think so.
Yeah, right.
I started off at Mountain View, which is a fire district outside the city of Longmont, and we were a 2-person engine company. So it was wrong, but man, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. I was fortunate enough to the lieutenant that I had throughout the years, Tim Losh. He was patient with me. Probably shouldn't have been.
Right.
He probably should have beat me up a lot more than he did. But he was very, very patient. And a 2-person crew is definitely, you get really good at the job really, really quick. And about 10 years into it, I went to paramedic school. I was the first paramedic that kind of went to school for the department. We'd had medics in the past, but never really had an ALS program. And I got out, and the guys were like, I don't want that stupid paramedic on my rig.
Right. And what year was that? Paint a picture.
95.
Okay.
95.
Really?
Yeah. So, and Tim's like, nope, he's on my rig. I wasn't going to give him up anyway. And I got a couple of those, you get out of paramedic school and you got a little bit of an attitude, because you're making life and death decisions.
Right.
And I remember on this one call, here I am strutting around with my paramedic stuff. I'm going to make a big difference. And he runs into the house. We had a medical call, and the lady goes, I don't think he's breathing. And I walked in there, and he's dragging him down down the hallway. And I'm like, is he breathing? And he goes, no. And I'm like, are you sure? And he turns the guy around, and he's blue, and he goes, what do you think, paramedic? And I'm like, I think it's time to, kind of rein back on that. And, so I was there. I was in the training division. Oh, God, we did sometimes 3 or 4 academies a year, whether they were all volunteer, combination department,
Right.
career department stuff. Got to learn from a lot of great, instructors from that standpoint. Really enjoyed the classroom portion of it. Got into teaching history, taught a lot about fire trucks. Somehow always got stuck teaching hose. Don't know how that happened, but
At the beginning, what kind of fire trucks were you guys running?
so we were running, the first truck I was ever on was an 82 Pierce Arrow. Had the back was open. She was a dog. Oh my God, she was that ugly yellow color. I used to,
82 Pierce. So that is got to be early on in the Pierce time frame.
yeah, they were. I think. What was it? I think the Arrow was their first custom chassis.
It was right.
So it was one of those first ones that came out. I mean, God, she was a workhorse.
Right.
She was underpowered, but besides that, I mean, it was fantastic. You had a top mount pump panel. You get those beautiful days in Colorado. You're just you're the outstanding firefighter, out standing in the street watching everybody else work.
And you can see everything.
Oh, you
from
can
up
see
there.
everything. Oh, and
Yeah.
And they were, the truck was great. It was really fantastic. you know, it was a good one to cut your teeth on. It had a 2-stage pump.
Right.
You know, so you got to learn all of that aspect
Sure.
of stuff. And you know, we were running 4-inch hose. That was before 5-inch became the thing. So it was definitely, you know, a lot of fun, a great time. You know, to be in the fire service, small little department we had. You know, when I started, there was 9 career people. Now I think they're staffing 6 or 7 houses now. 4 on the rig. It's, you know, it's definitely changed a
Sure.
bunch. So.
But I think you know, like you said in your starts with 2 guys on an engine, right? I mean, that's more the norm than most people want to admit.
Yeah.
Across the country,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
for staffing wise.
Yeah.
You know, Rob comes from a limited staff department that, you know, you guys are.
It's me and a fireman on the engine, and then if there's no EMS call, it's another 2 firefighters on the ladder truck behind us, and,
Right.
and that's it.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah, I know. I got promoted to lieutenant. I got this great engineer, and man, I tell you, it was so. I mean, we were together all the time. Kids call him Uncle Paul.
Right.
I know all 5 people that babysit my kids, and he was one of the guys that was allowed to babysit my kids. You know, and I mean, we would go do stuff. Like I'd take the line in the house by myself. You know, you'd be sitting there going, "Well, this is pretty stupid." You know, but that's what you had to do. So really good at pulling sealing with an automatic nozzle, get it nice and wet, jam it up in there. Just started yanking with the handle. You know.
Do you hear that? That's another reason for the pistol grip. That's
Right.
just throwing it out there for those that think pistol grips need to be sawed off and thrown in the dumpster. You know, but
Yeah, and, you know, and
Brian
then
Butler.
you know, once Paul would get everything set up, he'd come in, he'd back me up, and you know, we did a lot of fires that way, and we protected a good portion of I-25, so we got some pretty nasty car wrecks.
Wow.
You know, we got
Okay.
really good at extricating, and not much of the fire district had hydrants, so we were really good at shuttling water too. So I mean, it was definitely, for me, it was really good because it was this full encompassing aspect of firefighting. You know, we didn't have any high-rise buildings, but you know, we did have barns. Barns really burned good.
and hot.
And hot.
Yeah.
And hot, you know, and so yeah, that was definitely you know, a lot of fun. So
when you made that jump to lieutenant, Paul was, you know, your engineer was like, how much time did he have in the department?
he probably had, I think, 3 years as a volunteer and probably a year and a half as a paid guy.
Right.
So and that was great because, you know, when you're still new at that, learning something every day is fantastic. And the department was mostly volunteers, and you know, and typically, you know, paid volunteers kind of mesh. I loved the volunteers. They were a hoot and a half. We go to any training they were doing and you know, spend time with them, get to know them, because you know, you may have at one station, you may have guys that, you know, were in IT business, and then the other station had a bunch of farmers, and then the other guys were blue collar workers. And I remember going on fires where we needed a front end loader, and one guy would be like, "I got a cat key, I'll go get it." You know, and you're like, "Okay, start ripping it apart." You know,
Yeah.
Right.
which was great.
Yeah.
You know, and they all wanted to be there because they definitely wanted to be there. And one of the things that Tim set up with me when I was driving, he's like, "We get there, and then the volunteer rigs first. You just go up to the pump panel, make sure they got everything. If they need your help, you stay there. If not, you know, come on up." And it was great, you know, to go up and say, "Okay, what do you need?" You know.
Yeah.
"Oh, this is going well. This is going well. What do you think about this?" "Oh yeah, I've tried that." You know, it wouldn't take over. You just kind of sit back there and watch them for a little bit, you know, and let them do their thing. And that was definitely, you know, a lot of great friendships. And I mean, we could go for hours and hours on stories of
Sure.
things that you've seen and you know, and then you got to do and yeah, it's been fantastic.
So fast forward a little bit, right? I mean, your beginnings, you went from a smaller department, right? Now, in your area of Colorado, though, you've seen growth as well, right?
Oh,
I mean,
crazy
areas
growth.
Exactly.
Crazy growth.
So maybe you could talk about that a little bit, because that probably impacts your fire service career as you go from a 2-man engine company in your first, you know,
Yep.
in your early days to becoming a battalion chief now in a department that is sizably, you know,
Oh.
larger.
Yeah, we have 5 stations in Brighton. I got there in 2005. Did some stuff in training, you know, helped them get their training division up and running because they just transitioned from an all-volunteer department to somewhat of a combination to almost a completely career
Okay.
department. And now we're completely career. We got 5 houses. We're running 5 companies. We have a local ambulance service that lives in the stations with us. We're in the process right now of remodeling the station, so at the station that I'm at, there's 10 of us. So from being 2 people to 10 people. It's,
Yeah.
You know, and it's great. You know, we've got a couple guys that are my age. You know, a bunch in their 30s and 40s, and you know, and some 20-year-olds. So it's kind of nice to see the organization balanced out.
Good mix.
Yeah, and when we're full staffing, we got 4 on 5. We got 4 guys and girls on 4 of the engines, and the other engine has 3. So sometimes with staffing, we get down, guys going to school, injury, stuff like that. We'll have 3 on all the rigs. But yeah, it's great. I mean, we still, most of the district it doesn't have hydrants, so we're still shuttling water. So I always like shuttling water. That definitely is a lot of fun, and see 5 or 6 tenders, or as I prefer, we should call them tankers, lined up ready to move the water, and that adds that extra dimension, to fighting fires, and
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you have a lot of urban areas where, the water supply is never an issue, unless catastrophically there's a problem, right?
Right.
But, when you have to start worrying about where you're getting your domestic water from, and you got to start calculating how much fire versus how much volume I need versus what, where it's coming from. I mean, that adds a whole new dimension to the
How
game.
quickly is it going to get on the road? Depending on where it's from and
Yeah.
travel times.
Yeah,
everything
most
else.
definitely. Most urban fires, you're limited to how much air you can breathe, and that's the limiting factor. And,
Right.
And, when you get out there, it isn't the air, it's the water,
So do you have a water supply officer?
We try to get to that. It just kind of depends on the call volume and, how big the fire is, where we're getting the tenders. So in the north area of Denver where we're at, we're the only department that has tenders. So we can't call anybody else to come in and get
Right.
stuff. So we do have some that, that can come in, but it's definitely a truck to get them there.
Yeah.
But they're really good at, the guys and gals are really good at getting set up quick, very effective at moving water, and always get that fire. We had one here, I think it was a couple of years ago. You're like, I need 400 gallons, we're good, we're good. And the guy's like, I got 200. And you're like,
Oh, no. Yeah.
spray it a little bit more efficiently. Or
Yeah,
something,
right, yeah, be a little more-
And they go out of water, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
All right, well, in 10 minutes, we'll get to try it again. We'll back up and start again. So.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, that's just one of those. That's just one of those added stress values,
I think one thing that kids don't, or say kids, but like younger people in the fire service don't understand today is, I remember growing up in Sullivan County before we all had like a portable radio, and your clue that you would be out of water is the line would go limp, and you'd be like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Oops.
And come on, what's going on? Like, we're waiting for the next shuttle to come in. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we've had stuff like that where you just kind of look down there and you can see them all running around, and you go 1, 2, 3 tenders. Well, yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They get it figured out and go from there. So.
Yeah. As you see the sprawl, though, right, in your district, obviously since 2005, since you got there, it went from a small department that keeps growing. Are they building out the infrastructure to support that?
Yeah, they're getting there. It's it's the growth is more than they've ever seen. The city is very good at at planning for that. The fire district, we're kind of in a unique position. We have a brand new fire chief, a brand new deputy chief, a brand new operations chief, a brand new training chief, and a brand new fire marshal.
Wow.
Hopefully, when I get back, we'll have the brand new fire marshal. But and
Are these out of district hires, or
well,
are they?
actually, the fire chief isn't.
Okay.
He started another department, worked his way up through the ranks in Brighton, and he's now the fire chief there. And I've been through a lot of fire chiefs. I think he's my 18th fire chief that I've had in my career.
Wow.
And for the first time, it's a really solid group of command staff. And and they basically started it, and then the next day they go, oh, COVID, and like our training chief, he lives a little bit north, and his first 60 days at the fire district was at his house. He didn't even come into work because of doing the telecommuting and all that. So they definitely had some big hurdles that they had to get over,
Yeah.
and they did a fantastic job. We had all the information we needed. We knew it was going to change every day. It wasn't going to be the same as it was in the morning when it come to the afternoon, because we were fortunate. We were a couple weeks behind you guys here on the East Coast, so we got to watch what you did, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and make the adjustments. So we're kind of getting back to normal. I don't think we'll ever get back to the way it was, prior. I don't think we're going to see our administration staff. They won't always be up there. Most of them will be still doing stuff from home, for this foreseeable future. But
Yeah.
it went very, very well. From my standpoint, with the hospital-based ambulance service, the supervisor for the shift, me and him got a lot closer. We talked a lot more, which, looking back, like, should have been doing that about 7 years ago. Got a lot of great excuses. None of them really mattered. And so now we'll just move forward from that standpoint.
So that's what it is, right? I mean, I think a lot of this is we can't dwell. We're learning new practices, and whether you like it or not, a lot of this is not going away anytime soon.
No.
And so, we, in the fire service, what do? We always have to adapt and overcome, right?
Absolutely.
So, I think that's where we're headed. It's just, I think real conversations need to happen, and we have to understand that there is going to be change, and there is going to be moving forward. I think sometimes we get stuck too much on the traditional past of, doesn't mean we can't go back to it, and but there might be better ways.
Or just
Right.
emotion.
Yeah,
I think
emotional,
is like, you watch a lot of guys fall into that pitfall where they'll emotionally attach themselves to an opinion or a belief, and it unfortunately blocks out any kind of, I don't want to say progress, but it can be very detrimental to an organization. So,
And I think probably one of the best things about the COVID outbreak is there was nothing traditional about it.
Right.
So, as I would tell my guys and gals, I'd be like, everything they used to say no to, we got to say yes to now. And we got to try it, because I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing. So I'm hoping, from that standpoint, that becomes kind of the new mantra for the fire service, that what used to be no needs to be yes now. And let's try it. Maybe it still doesn't work, but give it a shot.
can you expand on that just a little bit more, because I think that's a great perspective, because we do have that, mentality, and that's I just like that. The good thing about COVID-19 is there's nothing traditional about it, and
Right.
so just kind of because I think you've got somewhere where that came from.
Yeah, and like for me being the battalion, I didn't go on the calls, so I didn't understand what they were doing. It's easy to say, oh, well, that was another medical call, and you guys put this on and you put that on and you rubber gloved and you did all that kind of stuff, and we taped up the ambulance, but I wasn't doing it. I didn't understand it. So for me, I tried to spend a lot more time listening to what they were saying, and the big thing that it came for me was watching the stress level that they had, because you come back and, like, when they ran their first one, they're like, well, am I going to take this home?
Yeah.
To my family, and all that kind of standpoint. And you're like, well, we're pretty sure that this is gonna work for us, but
Yeah.
we're not 100% sure. So I think for the fire service, that's always difficult, because, if your department tomorrow says, oh, we want to start transporting, oh, you just call all the departments that are transporting. What was your good point? What was your bad point? What worked? What didn't work? And like for us in the North area, we call the other departments and go, what are you doing? Well, we're trying this. How's it going? I don't know. We've been doing it for 6 hours. We're going to see how.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah,
There was a lot of that.
So, and I think for a lot of us, there's very few times in our life that we do something that's never been done before. You put a deck in your house. How many people you can call? Say, hey, I got to put a deck in. Oh, I know this guy. I know this person. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. And with this, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But the great thing from my standpoint is now, because there's nothing, I get to build it from nothing. So you can't say, well, you can't go down that path because in the past it's done this. So, like I would tell the guys, like, they'd be working out, like, get the ambulance crew in there to work out with you. Guys got to blow off some steam. Don't worry about what it is. I know that they're a separate organization from us, and I want them to keep their identity, but, start crashing down those walls, because you're all in it together. So I used to tell people, I was in charge of 20 firefighters, and now I'm like, no, it's 20 firefighters plus 7 paramedics. So, we got to get past that thing, because they're out there, running these calls, and we got hit. We didn't get hit as bad as some places did, but we might have, and you got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
And not knowing what that's going to be was definitely challenging, but good, because it was new, and you're like, hey, you get that little enthusiasm, get a little pep in your step. Our new operations chief, he's writing a new policy almost every day. Here, okay, this isn't working. Let's make that that change. And so part of the thing when we decon the ambulances now, we use a spray gun, to decon stuff. And at the beginning, they're like, well, should we decon the ambulances? And like, why wouldn't we decon the ambulances? And they're like, okay, perfect. And then the next thing you know, police cars are showing up.
Yeah.
So you're cleaning the police cars from that standpoint.
I think that was some of the frustration, though, too, for guys on the line, that every single day, and even the officers, even for yourself, as a battalion chief walking in the building, you didn't know what set of orders were coming down that day, though.
Yeah, but that's okay because I got in that mindset of never done it before. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So no is now
That's
yes.
a good way to put it.
Yeah. So to me, it was that part was kind of neat. You know, to watch them develop it and come up with different ways to handle situations.
That's a good point.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So, in your 34 years, this has got to be one of the more challenging times that I have to think. I mean, you've
Yes.
gone through a lot, you've seen a lot over your years. I have to think now more than ever. This is a super interesting time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It you know, it definitely is. You know, like I said, we got some of the older people, so you know they get where I'm coming from with with my stuff. The younger people, they're different, and I wasn't. You know, when I got in, I was different than the old guys that were there. So trying to find out, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. You just got to. I talk a lot more to them, and one of the advantages I have is I like to talk. So we can easily make this podcast go about 12 hours.
Well, I love that. But where I was going with this, right, was I kind of had a feeling you were going to go in that avenue because at lunch, right, we grabbed the quick lunch before we did this just to get to know each other a little bit. And we were talking about the difference in the generational thinking, that how do we communicate, and that your firehouse is made up of older guys, middle-aged guys, younger guys, and it's connecting. And I think, you talked about getting out and being on the floor with the guys and communicating with them. Now more than ever, it's so important to communicate from the top down, but also to listen from the bottom up.
Absolutely. And I'll get the young guys come up and I remember one day we were at the station and one of the guys worked construction. And he goes, well, let me talk to you a little bit about management. And I was a battalion. I'm like, okay, go. And I had the engineer sitting next to me and he kind of did the,
Yeah, here we go, right?
Yeah. And I was like, go. And, and he shared his thoughts. And I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And, when he gets up and he walks out and the engineer looks at me and he goes, how'd you keep your cool, man? Because I was about ready to tell him where to go. And I'm like, well, what happens if he knew something and I didn't? And we're going to be in a situation where I have to do something. I need that information because for my organization within my battalion, when something is bad, they're all looking at me. And I'm going to pull from anybody that I can pull from. If you're 14, if you're 86, you never know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. And I want to be ready because I don't want them to look at me and go, what do you want to do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
We were fighting this horse barn fire, and the eastern part of the district's kind of the plainy part of the state, and the dispatcher came back and said, hey, we got a funnel cloud in your area. And I look up over the hill and I'm like, yup, that's a funnel cloud.
Yikes.
And so I told one of the lieutenants, I'm like, you just keep your eye on it. And he goes, well, what are you going to do when it gets here? And I'm like, I don't know. They didn't cover that in fire school. We're going to have to figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
He's like, can we enter the trucks? I'm like, good idea.
Yeah, right.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
So, and you're trying with all your might to say, go farther away, go away,
Yeah.
go away. So, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I get days, like everybody else where I come in, I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
And those days I just go in my office and try to pull my head out of my butt and then go back out and say, hey, I've got something new to learn from the newest person, to the oldest person. I don't know where it's going to apply in my life. I don't know when it's going to happen. When we get into start talking about the trucks, I got a lot of stories about, the best way to solve a problem in a firehouse is just start talking to everybody. Because everybody's got an opinion, and just before you know it, you're going to find that solution, and you go, oh, there it is. And I had one guy, he was one of the lieutenants that worked for me. He was the guy I go to every time I got stumped.
Right.
Because he just would say, well, what about this? I'm like, thank you. That's
Yeah, that
exactly
works. Yeah, right. I like that.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. But I think that also, too, kind of rolls into what I've gotten to know about you with your desire to learn history, your desire to learn information, to educate yourself, right? We talked about training earlier, but I kind of want to roll into, Six Finger Woodworking, right?
Sure.
I mean, let's talk about this a little bit because you and I we talked back and forth on the phone. We communicated through text and instant messaging and all that,
Right.
and so on. And I always took away from our conversation, it was like just educating myself with the wealth of knowledge you are when it comes to apparatus and what you enjoy talking about and learning. And so maybe we can roll into this a little bit, because we're sitting here and I'm constantly looking at these two,
Right.
these beautiful pieces. I mean, it's art. It really is. I don't know. You call them models? Like, what do you refer to them as?
I just call them trucks.
Trucks.
My dad likes
Trucks.
to call it art, and he always asks me where my beret is. He likes to have a little fun with that. So my great-grandfather, grandfather, dad, and uncle were all volunteer firefighters. So, and my household, with my kids when they're over, it's a fire station.
Yep.
It's the exact same thing. There's
I love that.
ribbon, there's joking, but at the end of the day, everybody's pulling their own weight. I do most of the cooking, they do most of the cleaning. And and it works out really, really well. And I hope over time that the kids have learned that they have an opinion and their opinion matters. And we brainstorm ideas and talk about different stuff. Of course, Chuck's over here sitting, and he does turn in with wood bowls, and he'll ask me questions, and I'm like, dude, I have no idea. I might just give it a shot, see how it goes. So
Cool.
now he's the expert when it comes to doing that in the household.
Yeah.
His sister, she's on a really cool educational path. Sounds like she's going to become a surgeon, and
Wow.
so that's pretty neat. And
Yeah.
and they each got a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and when they're all at the house, it's just like a mini fire station, and I'm the dumbest one in the house, but I'm happy.
I feel the same way, man. That's hysterical. I'm the same thing at home. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So like when we were doing, when we made the big ladder truck, so that one of the fun thing is everybody likes to give themselves jobs within the business. I'm the labor force,
Yep.
and everybody else is upper management.
That's right.
So they pick titles all the time, and my daughter goes, well, I'm the social media director, international sales. So when we did the big ladder truck last year, the Facebook account just blew up.
Oh, I'm sure.
I normally get 5,000 views. We were at, I think when it finished up, it was around 200,000.
Yeah.
And I went upstairs, took a shower, started cooking dinner, pull up the phone. I'm like, it's at 90,000, and there's 37 questions. And I go into the phone, and I'm like, okay, social media
There
director,
you go.
go do your thing. And she's like, I'm on vacation. So I'm like, But but that's that's definitely the coolest part about it. It is a hobby. It makes a little bit of money, but the biggest thing is things like this.
Yeah.
That's the part of it that's made it crazy. When we started doing this 12 years ago, if you'd have told me that I'd be in Pierce's booth at FRI, I would be delivering stuff to the Pennsylvania State Fire Marshal's office. We'd be doing fundraisers for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, burn centers. Up here with you guys building stuff for Volvo, I'd have been like, nah, I'm just a guy with a bandsaw and sanding some wood down, kind of a thing. So the journey has definitely been utterly fantastic. So, yeah.
So I don't even know where to begin. I mean, maybe we begin at the beginning because I have a lot of things I want to talk about you and about the process and the product. But maybe we just start at the beginning. I mean, go ahead, Rob.
I want to find out, because you said it before in the beginning of this, when we started talking about how you got into the history, because I think the history and what you did here between the aerial scope and the tiller truck kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said before, we had this offline conversation about talking to us about what details to put into the truck.
Right.
And how, and I just think that's a great segue into this, because you have this history and then you have this skill and they meld together.
Yeah,
There's a little synergy going on there.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I always thought when I got in the fire service that I'd be building fire trucks. I thought they'd be real fire trucks.
Right.
And God has a sense of humor. And here we go with that portion of it. Yeah, I found the history at the beginning, it just wasn't that big of a deal to me. And one of the guys, the training chief at Mountain View, he was really into it. And then he just posed a question one day, where'd the first fire pole come from? And the internet had just kind of started coming out, so you could actually research stuff.
Right.
And then, God, next thing you know, hey, look, there's a reason behind the Maltese cross. Oh, look at all this stuff that's on there. Oh, look at this, look at this. So the next thing you know, I'm buying books and I'm reading about the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. If you ever read that book, you will never take your kids to a circus ever again. the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire. You started reading stuff like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you watched how historically the same fire happened over and over and over and over and over again, and like, well, how are we going to learn from this? The North area of Denver, they do an academy, and for a couple of years I got to go teach a history class, with them on that, and they would give you an hour and a half, and you're like, okay, everything's important. There's a lot of stuff, so I can do 2 hours and an hour and a half. You just have to sit down and hold on, because I'm not going to breathe.
Yeah.
We're just going to go, and we're going to go. And there's this section that I always called interesting, useless information. So, like, how did blackballing start? Well, that started in the fire service, Front-wheel drive started in the fire service. All-wheel stiller started in the fire service. You would talk about things like that. I had a Dalmatian dog for a while and got into the history of the Dalmatian, why the Dalmatian was in the fire service. And it just, to me, it just became so fascinating that everything that we do in the fire service, there's a reason. And it's not where other businesses, they do stuff because they just do it. But you can go back, if you want to dig into it enough, you can say, okay, I go to this training and this individual's talking about this, and you push them enough, they'll go back through the history, and then you get to the beginning and you go, okay, now it makes sense. Now I understand why why we do it that way, as opposed to, that person that goes, well, because I told you so.
I love that.
Now, when you're building a piece, like, because you said before, one of the things that we also talked about, you related to us, like, you never actually saw a Baker aerial scope.
Right.
Because where you're from in Colorado, you typically don't see that platform
Nope.
out there. So like, and what we're looking at, for those who are just listening in, is Dale City Volunteer Fire's tower ladder. The chief built 2 of them, one for Dale City and then another one that's going up to Seagrave.
Up to Seagrave.
And that's the one that we have here in the studio with us. So in this process of doing this woodworking, you're also learning about...
Oh, yeah. Oh, lots about it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. It was kind of interesting because when we were down there yesterday and the guy was showing us the truck, the way the boom extends, there's actually a lift cylinder inside the boom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, look at there. I didn't notice there were no lift cylinders. And, for them, they love the truck, but I walk around the truck, I'm like, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I didn't notice that. What's this? What's that? Kind of a thing. And, I get a lot of good pictures from people, when we go through the process of building the truck, but still, as you look through it, you're like, that's interesting. I wonder what that is. The guy that had the tiller we were on a couple days ago, he's got that same American LaFrance tiller, and I finally asked him, like, dude, where do you put the gas in the truck? Because I've been looking for a gas cap. And he's like, oh yeah, there's this little compartment right over here, we lift the lead up, and that's where it goes. And you're like, oh, I knew it had to go somewhere. I mean, I don't think this thing's been running on magical power since it was built. So yeah, it definitely, that portion of it's great, because, for me, I always get to see trucks differently, and then, when you open up the magazines that are coming out, or as, the builders add stuff to their website, you're like, that one's kind of different.
Yeah.
I wonder what's about that one, and, kind of look at it. So I get to help out speccing the trucks at Brighton, and I'm getting towards the end of my career, so I have an engineer, and he's a big fan of the show, and he's going to be really jealous that I'm here.
This show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You got to give a shout out.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Hey, Mikey. Yeah.
Hey, Mikey, what's up, brother?
Yeah,
you got an open invite anytime, pal. You come east, you look us up.
Right.
But listen, we'll make that when we make our West Coast swing. We'll have to come over.
And he loves tillers.
That's cool.
And he's a big tiller time fan.
Awesome,
and all that
awesome.
kind of
What
stuff.
was your first truck and why did you build it?
Okay. All right. So we're going to dive into this.
Well, we got to get into the story. Right. I mean, let's get into the
let's get
story.
it.
How did it start?
Let's back the story up a little bit. So when I was a kid, my dad does woodworking too. So he built me a wooden semi-truck and a trailer to play with. So that had bolts in the axle so I could run it all around the ground. And the neighbor behind us, he built one for me as well. But the one my dad built, the hitch point was on the tractor. The one my neighbor built, the hitch point was on the trailer. So you couldn't move them back and forth. So for, 5, 6, 7 years, I was pissed off because I couldn't move them back and forth. Never dawned on me to just say, hey, Dad. So he got old enough.
That's hilarious.
And I give him the trucks. I'm like, check it out. I said, I had these trucks when I was a kid. About 6 seconds into it, he's like, you can't change the trailers. And I'm like, yeah, that pissed me off too.
I know.
I'm like, that's so wrong. And he goes, well, and I'm like, dude, I just build new ones. So I hadn't done it before, and I did some woodworking and stuff like that. So we just came up with a concept, and I said, okay, this is what a semi truck looks like. Cut it out on the the table saw, the chop saw, the bandsaw. I did some stuff like that. made them, and then I took them into work, and you know, one of the guys is like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know, that's going to be something he's going to have forever. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a, you know, pretty good year or good idea. And it was in 2008, and you know, the fire district didn't pay very well, and I was afraid that a lot of the guys weren't going to be able to do good stuff for their kids for Christmas. So I'm like, hey, you know what we'll do? I'll just figure out everybody that's got a son, we'll make them a tractor, we'll make them 2 trailers, and the trailers we'll be able to interchange. That was the big thing. So I was kind of talking to him about it, and this was like in August, and you know, I get the one guy who comes up, he goes, I don't have any boys. I'm like, ah, crap, I didn't think of that. So now I'm figuring out a way to make a cradle, and then I'm figuring out a way to make a little Adirondack chair, you know, so depending on the age, you know, the girl would get whatever it was. So we invited the whole shift over. I had 13 tractors, 25 trailers, 6 chairs, 8 or 9, you know, cradles in the garage, and everybody's over. We're opening up. We're like, hey, Merry Christmas.
That's cool.
And one guy goes, hey, you ever thought about building a fire truck? And that's what started the whole thing. So
And when was that?
that was in 2008. So I always tell people, be careful what you say to who, because you don't know what the outcome's going to be. And here's the outcome as of.
Now, do you always make stuff out of clear pine? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So part of the process with the clear pine is there's a couple reasons. Is now the machine that I use it uses a router bit, and it's a 64th inch in diameter. So if you went to an oak, that bit would break almost instantly.
Yeah, you need
so
to
the
be
pine is nice and soft,
right?
enough to
Yeah.
do it. And then second of all, it keeps the cost down.
Yep.
You know, because
Well, you have a lot of pine where you are.
yeah, we do have a lot
Clear
of pine.
pine's expensive.
Yeah, and I just use standard pine. I don't use the clear pine.
Okay.
You know, because you know, firefighters don't have a lot of money, and I don't need all these trucks in my house. So that makes it so we can sell them, and you know, we can get them out there, you know, to everybody from that standpoint. So, like the first one that I built, oh my God, that was horrible. I mean, it was cool at the time.
You showed me pictures
Yeah.
of them on the
was it?
shelf.
It's just a fire truck. That's
Okay, just something
It's
generic.
just got a cab.
Yeah.
It's got a couple of discharges. It's got a ladder rack. You know, there isn't much to it at all. But that took 2 months to figure out how to do, because like, you know, like how do you make a wheel well, and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So, you know, so the first 100 trucks that came off were, in a sense, hand built. And then we got a CNC machine, and then that changed everything. And we got to rock it into what we do now. I used to have a jig that every aerial ladder that I made was exactly the same, because
Yeah.
I had one jig, and it was either a 75 foot, a 95 foot, 100, 105, and it was the same piece. So now, you know, we have the luxury that we can build the aerial and make it actually look like the aerial itself.
So I remember when we were talking, you sent me a picture. I think it was you sent me a picture, and you said, "Here's a shelf in the background," and
Right.
it had like some of your early works
Yep.
up into these works, and it's like it really is a progression of,
Oh, yeah.
you know. And as you went, I mean, obviously the equipment got
Better.
better, but you also the know-how got better.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So, but this was you mentioned your father earlier,
Mm-hmm.
who was into woodworking too, right? So I guess a lot of it stems from your
Yeah.
upbringing and so
Absolutely.
on, right? And then
Absolutely.
okay, and then getting into it. So how did the name?
And the name. Okay, so you know, you're just goofing around with this, and then you get that point where you go, "Hey, you know, I think we can do something
Yeah.
with this. So let's try a little bit bigger." And you know, I'm at the fire station, and I'm like, I got to come up with a name. And you know, and the guys they're bouting out, you know, opinions about this
Sure.
and everything. And then you know, no conversation in the fire service stays linear. It's serpentine.
Right.
You know, so now all of a sudden we're talking about tacos, and then we come back over here, and then that one guy goes, "Dude, did you have that woodshop teacher that you only had like 6 fingers?" And I was like, "Oh, that's it." I was like, "That's the name. That's the name. Six Finger Firemen Woodworking." And they're like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." And I'm like, "Perfect. That's so that's how it came about. Was just sitting around the firehouse, and and they're all talking.
That's hysterical.
And
That's great.
for me, I'm focused. I'm like, dude, I got to come up with a name, because I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this, and they're over there going, "Hey, what are you going to do tomorrow?" I'm like, "Come on, focus." And but if I
tacos do you want?
right. So if I had kept them on that path, we never would have gotten there. So you just at some point, I just sit back and go, just buckle up, hold on, let's see where it takes us, and that's where it took us.
I was just with a couple of machinists the other day. Not any of them. 3 different machinists I had in the meeting. I was with them, and we were talking about some machinery and so on. And none of them had 10 fingers.
Yeah.
None of them.
Yeah.
I think every machinist I know, whether woodworking or mechanic or something, they either have a stub,
Right.
missing a finger, their
Right.
whole hand's messed up.
Or there's a chunk gone.
Oh man, that's hysterical. I didn't even think of that. That's funny.
Yeah,
that's very
how, that's
funny.
how it came about. So.
That fits your humor too. I think,
Yeah,
which is
and like I think it's like I said before, a lot of the bumps that I ran into, it was either my dad was helping me through it, my kids were helping me through it, or the people at the fire station were helping me through it.
Yeah.
We did the Spamfus show out in Colorado, and the one in Colorado is really good, but it's limited just because of the size of where we're at. And a department out east had what they call the 1903 Rapid. So basically, what it looked like was a horse-drawn cart that somebody had stuck a gas motor on it. And they had restored this thing, and they're wheeling it out the back of the trailer. And I leaned over to my dad, and I'm like, you better figure out how we're going to build that.
That's cool.
Because he's coming over here. And he goes, you think? I'm like, oh, he's coming over here. So about 2 hours later, over comes the fire chief, and he says, well, I like what you're doing. Do you think you can make me one? And I said, well, I got to talk to engineering. There's a lot of detail on that. He goes, okay. He goes, when do you know? He goes, how long do you think that'll take? I'm like, I don't know. So I leaned over to my dad. I'm like, did you figure it out? He goes, yep. I said, yeah, I talked to engineering. They said they got it all figured out. We're good to go. So, And then it was like a couple years later, we were down there, and we get lots of questions. I can tell you, I know the questions you guys are going to ask because that's, we get them all the time.
Of course.
And I got this guy walks up and he goes, those are pretty neat. He goes, where do you buy those kits at? I said, you go down to Home Depot. They're aisle 6. And next to us there's a Home Depot booth there. And I didn't think anything about it, so we're just kind of throughout the day.
They hell went over
and this
there.
lady comes over and she goes, I've been on the phone with corporate and we don't know where these kits are that you're talking
You
about.
gotta be kidding me. That's
I'm like,
that is
it's
incredible.
the pine boards on aisle 6. You just take them, you cut them up.
That's awesome.
And she's like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
That's funny. But to speak of modeling, right? I mean, this is absolutely a craft. It's art in my eyes. But like, you ever think of like scaling into mass produced kit? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people go, hey, can you do the portion of it before you slice it out on the bandsaw and send it to me? And I'm like, well, I go kind of, part of the fun of it for me is I get to see your truck develop. And I get to do all the research on it, which makes that part of my brain that's all about order happy. And then when I build it, the part of my brain that likes to just go crazy really enjoys that portion of
Right.
it. And I don't like building the same truck twice because that's not why I want to do it. Could I get into a thing where we make one truck and we do it over and over again? Sure, then it's a job.
Right.
And my job, if I'm going to do that, it better pay really, really well.
Yeah, I get it.
And
I get it.
So this isn't that. This is a hobby that people pay me to do. So, and the thing is we get to see it a lot. Is when you bring the truck in and you set it down.
Sure.
And the guy goes, "That's my truck," and you're like, "Perfect. That's exactly."
Well, today, I mean, you walked in the studio, you opened up the hatchback of your car in the parking lot,
right.
And all the wood fell out.
and I was like, I'm like leaning down, like looking at it. It's covered in a blanket, and I'm like, there it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Chief, what's the? Is there a piece that you built that you are extremely proud of, or that had sentimental value to you that you were just like, wow, this one means something special?
I think all of them do because each one's going to be something to somebody. Like this one here, your guys' tiller, that led me here.
This is,
This one here, it's leading us up to Seagrave, and I've already talked to a couple people up there. Kind of interesting. The guy that we were staying with the other day, his brother works for Seagrave, and he goes, "Hey, my brother called me and said he got to be part of the group that made the decision on what truck to buy." And you're like, "Oh, that's kind of funny, small little world and all that." So, is there one? No, they're definitely all that.
Nothing that stands out though.
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, if we brought out, I think this one's 328.
I was going to ask how many.
Maybe it's 330. No, this is 333.
Did you number them all?
They're all numbered. They're all numbered and signed. Yours are attached, but if you looked underneath it, it would be signed.
Do you keep a log?
Yeah, I have a picture of every truck I built. I know I got a little PowerPoint presentation for that part of my brain that likes to be, and it's got a name of who it went to, who bought it, if there was something new that had done it. So as the woodworking developed, there were monumental leaps on stuff. Like I used to not do mirrors. So then all of a sudden, that became the big thing was, so you would put that in there. And then I started adding windshield wipers and, little things like that. So, yeah, I got every truck. I can tell you where it went, who bought it, when they ordered it. I got all the pictures they sent me. So if I need to go back and, do another truck at another time, I can use it for reference.
I think for myself, I'm blown away by your generosity. One, for the one that's sitting here today and our friendship that has developed over it. And I'm looking forward to the next 100 years with you.
Sure,
and
right, absolutely.
The amount of projects I think that we'll probably get into together, because I really enjoy surrounding myself with just people that bring just an incredible passion to fire service, and you are certainly one of them. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. We did a on-tap fundraiser for Lieutenant Jason Menard out of Worcester, Massachusetts. And we had just an incredible outpouring of support from sponsors and people that gave to the silent auction we did, and Tricky Tray, if you will. And of course, we had a lot of different types of prizes and to be won, and one of them was a remake of Worcester Ladder 5, which was the tiller that Jason Menard wrote on. Little backstory on that, Chief. I mean, you had built that truck previously.
Yeah, I always thought, because it was a Schmiel truck, and
Right.
I thought it was cool looking.
Yeah.
So you're like, I want to build that, and I built it and sold it to somebody a long time ago, and then, when we heard about what had happened and seen what you guys were doing, for me to build a ladder truck from start to finish is about 100 hours, but because I've already built it, we could have probably eliminated about 40 hours of all that, that previous stuff. I build them just like the big ones do. 80% of the work is paperwork, from that standpoint. And, I tried to figure out a way to get it done and actually get back here with it.
Yeah.
And you're like, if we had 3 more days,
Yeah.
you could have done it. And, so, it's not the way that I'd hoped for, but I think it turned out exactly the way it needed to, because I even got comments from his family, on my Facebook account, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I just figured I was cutting wood in the shop and making some sawdust and having a good day. And sometimes you just don't understand that, who you reach and what the outcome can be, so.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart to be a part of that. You helped us raise over $17,000 that
Fantastic.
night for the family.
Fantastic.
And that was, I think, in our 2.5 years of doing this, I think that's probably the proudest moment I have going. Just to be able to give back like that. And it was only because of the generosity of gentlemen like yourself and companies and individuals that really stepped up. And I just wanted to give you a thank you for that. It meant the world. And I know it's in a good home.
Yeah.
And so on. So it's very cool. That you do projects like that too. You mentioned you worked with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
Done that a couple times.
Yeah. And I just, and that's the one thing that always struck me too, is that, the amount of time that goes into these. I mean, start to finish, what is the...
Well, what I say is like an engine's 40 hours, a ladder truck can be up to 100.
Right.
Depending on
So
the detail.
you're talking like the tiller, right? This aeroscope. I mean, you're talking a project upwards of 100 hours of your time.
Yeah.
That goes into the creation, the thought process, the creation, and the manufacturing of it. And all that time that goes into that, and then the materials, and then so often you're doing these for good causes. And
Yeah, we try to do at least 3 to 4 a year.
That's incredible.
And at the beginning we kind of had to search them out, and now we don't. They come find us, which makes it a lot better. We've done some, like a buddy of mine, his wife is really big in an organization that started off by doing backpacks for kids to school, and then that thing has blown up into this huge fundraising, and they wanted a truck, and I'm like, well, there's certain areas where the truck's going to make you the money that you think it's going to make. This is not one of those areas, so we ended up making a little serving tray. We got to go down there and see all the stuff that the people were doing from that standpoint. And my dad taught me to give back. I teach my kids to give back. I'll be honest with you, I sleep better at night, and people, I'm sure they benefit from it, but I'm a little selfish. I sleep better at night.
Yeah.
Getting to do that stuff, and it's always fun because you get to you get to meet more people, and you know, like when we were at that auction for the backpack lady, they also sponsor like art classes after school. And this young lady had painted this very nice painting, and they auctioned it off, and it got up to $5,000.
Wow.
And the two gentlemen that were bidding against it, you know, they sold it for $5,000, and the other guy got really angry, and he stood up and he goes, "Well, I don't think that's fair." And he goes, "Well, you know, this is kind of the bidding process." And the young lady was there, and he said, "Would you paint me that again?" And she said, "Sure." And he goes, "Good, I'll give you $7,000."
Wow.
You know, so I mean, from that standpoint, you know,
Yeah.
you look at it and you go, especially being in the fire service, there's days where you don't meet the best people.
I get it.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and that gets hard. And then you get moments like this where you meet a bunch of really great people, and you're like, okay, things are good.
Called us great.
Yeah.
He's talking about you guys. No doubt.
So we did. One of the guys, he's a firefighter in a neighboring department, and his engineer, the engineer's got two younger brothers, and one of them came down with cancer. And so he says, "Hey, we do this fundraiser," and they called me and they're like, "Hey, you know, we want to kind of have you do it." And I'm like, "All right, well, you're not doing it for firefighters. You're bringing the general public. Do not put me as the big sell-all piece, because you're going to be sadly disappointed. Because, you know, if we took these trucks to just a normal auction, we'd get maybe $50 to $100 for them." So we go up to this thing, and there was a nice lady. She was the auctioneer, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get $1,500." And I'm like, no, you're not going to get $1,500. And she goes, "I'm going to get $1,500. I said, "All right, I'll make you a deal." I says, "If you can get $750, you add another truck. So just throw another truck in there." I says, "My plan is," this was like 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I said, "You know, whoever gets it, we'll tell them the truck will be done by Thanksgiving. I'll just move it up to the top of the line. We'll work a little extra hard. We'll get it up to the top of the line." So I had a New York City aerial scope there that I brought to show what we could do, and we had it in the glass, in the plexiglass case. First plexiglass case we ever built. Of course, halfway through the event, everybody's drinking up a little storm, and I get this big old farmer comes up and he leans on the case, and I'm like,
Oh no.
"All right, well, it held. Cool, we're good to go." He's like, "Can you build a tractor?" And I'm like, "Well, what kind of tractor?" He goes, "John Deere." I said,
Is there any other type?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
and you know, and I was like, "You got it?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Sure, I'll give it a shot." So a lady gets up, she starts doing the auction thing, and this guy raises his hand. He's like, "If I win, can you build me a combine?" And I'm like, "Whoa, sure, we'll give it a try. What the heck?" And man, she just ran that thing up, and next thing you know, it's at $1,500. And I'm like, "Oh, I gotta start charging more money for my trucks," you know. And so she stops, and you know, they sold the truck, and she looked at me, and I said, "Yeah." And she goes to the other guy, she goes, "Will you buy one for 14?" And he goes, "Oh, absolutely." And she goes, "And both trucks will be done by Thanksgiving." And I'm like, "Oh crap!"
Oh man.
You know, you're just sitting there
Yeah,
going,
right. Yep.
oh,
Sure.
Let's say I gotta work shift. It's the holidays. Oh yeah, we'll figure. But
Kids?
yeah. But we got it done. We got it done. So
Wow.
you know, and it's that stuff. You know, that stuff's just God. That's just so much fun to to go be part of it. And you know, like when we were doing stuff for Lieutenant Menard, you know, like I said, his family reached out, and you know, and you're reading this stuff, and I believe I got a comment from his dad, his mother, and his wife.
Is that right?
I believe so.
Wow.
And you know, so you're just, you know, you're sitting there and you're holding and you're going, "Oh my God, these people just need to get through tomorrow," and they took the time
Yeah.
to find me and to make a comment, and you know, it reassures me that humanity is good.
Yep.
Just sometimes we have bad days. So yeah, but yeah, definitely a lot of fun.
Are
there things on this that are like standard that you do, like ladders? Are you making similar? Everything is to the piece.
Yep, to the piece. Yep. I kind of like when I draw the trucks up, I do have a little library that I can pull stuff from. But you know, like for this one, this is the first time I ever did a 900 series tiller with a roof. So, because most people like them without them,
Right.
but not you guys.
No, we got to be different. We got to be different, Chief. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Chief, tell me about those plans we were talking about.
So the first time that I had an ALF engine that I was getting ready to do, it was for a guy down in Denver. So we went over, we looked at the truck, took a whole bunch of pictures, got the tape measure out. You know, there's no blueprints anymore for stuff like that. so I built the truck and I brought it back to him and he says, that's fantastic. I go, yeah, this one was challenging, you know, no blueprints or nothing. He goes, I got the factory drawings inside in a frame. And I'm like, it's a little late now, but thank you.
Yeah.
So then I started getting on like eBay and starting to look at, you know, some of the stuff that would show up. So I ended up finding a guy who was selling an American LaFrance drawing of a 90-foot snorkel. And it was $10, so I bid on it, and I got the drawing, and then, you know, he sent it to my house, and I sent him a couple of pictures of the stuff I do. I said, here's what I'll be doing with the drawing. About 2 weeks later, this big old box showed up at my house, and the guy was a salesman for American LaFrance.
Wow.
And he had tons of drawings, and he's like, well, these will be better spent, you know, with you. And I was like, oh, that's pretty fantastic.
That's awesome.
So, you know, of course, the only thing he didn't have was a tiller.
Right.
God, that'd be
course.
too easy.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
from
of
that
course.
standpoint. But then, probably one of the more interesting ones is on eBay. I found I think it was Minneapolis, their truck 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that. So it's a 53 MacB tiller,
Very cool.
and it is the blueprints. I mean, it's 3 feet by 2 feet. It's all whatever that blueprint paper is and all this. So I take it and I draw it. I put it in my computer. I call the department up. I'm like, hey, I have these. They do not need to be at my house. They need to be with you guys. And they're like, we're not interested. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. He goes, well, you can try the museum. So I called the museum and I said, hey, they need to be there. They don't need to be here. They're like, nah, we don't want them. We don't want them. So, this weekend here we met some new people, and I got a link or, talked to one guy, and he's going to ask around and see who wants it, because it does not need to be sitting in a drawer in Colorado.
I might have somebody for you if you don't have somebody.
Yeah.
And it's funny because somebody gave me a white helmet once, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I got this leather helmet," and I'm like, "Where'd you get it from?" They're like, "Oh, I got it on a yard sale. It was $20." And I'm like, "This is a leather New Yorker."
It's like an old 5A or something that's
And-
like,
And I didn't at that point in my career, I didn't even know to look into it.
Right.
All I know is I flipped it over, and it said Wappingers Falls Fire Department.
oh, cool.
And one of the guys that I worked with at the time, Chris Burke, his father was still the chief of Wappingers. So I just bought the helmet to him. I said, "Hey, Chris, this doesn't belong to me. Like somebody gave it to me, but this, like, do you or your dad want it?" And like
Right.
he was real happy, So like that's, and I don't want to say it's shocking, but like it's just like, wow.
It's very commonplace though. I mean,
Yeah.
since we've been doing this and all the relationships we've had, I mean, I think of guys like Bobby Eckert and Pete Callan and guys that love their cities where they're firefighters. Danny McCauley.
Oh yeah.
These are guys that love their fire departments, love the city they're in, but they love collecting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if they can find anything of any of their good friends at a sale or anywhere that they can pick up, they will.
Right.
If it's a reasonable, like a knick-knack or something, a
Sure.
badge for $20 that's for the city of Brighton or
Right.
whatever, right?
Right.
And I think that's just interesting that collectors have that mindset. It's keeping that tradition alive. It's passing that forward. So I love that about that.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to keep it in my house, but that's not where it belongs.
So anyway, if I might have somebody for your Mac prints if you don't have somebody lined up.
Not yet.
But I think too, like you're like a steward of the history of these trucks. Like you said that building the trucks is one thing. That's your sanity, and you enjoy that. But it's the journey of it.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And you get to meet, like this weekend, I met a couple guys and you walk away and you go, yeah, you're as smart as I thought I was.
I feel that way every day.
I kind of feel like I've been a t-ball player that I got to go sit on the big field at the major leagues and go, ooh, I do not know as much as I thought I did. And so, that part's really humbling, but it's good, because now you go, okay, now there is this next level, and let's go find out what this next level is, and making those contacts where I can say, hey, I got this truck I'm working on. Tell me what you know about what could have been or what should have been, and to be able to replicate it even better from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's cool.
How often do you get to work off of the blueprints or something similar?
So I'd say probably 70% of what I get that people order is modern day. So we can get stuff from the factory or from their website. So a lot of it, the other 30% is no. My skill really isn't woodworking. My skill is the ability to see scale.
Got it.
And so, as we build trucks, like this weekend again, we were looking at, I think it was a Franklin Mint Philly tiller truck, and I was with the two gentlemen, and I'm like, can you pick up what's wrong with the truck? And they're like, no, and one of them said, he goes, I always thought something was off, and I'm like, yeah, the cab's about a 16th inch too high, and it needs to be about an 1/8 of an inch longer. And he's like, that's it. So I think that's what makes the trucks look that much more impressive, because, you know, I can see it. You know, when I'm drawing these blueprints or these drawings, like a guy sent me that traditional fire truck picture, and it was like a 1936 500 series American LaFrance, and his dad was on the truck, and he wanted the truck. And I'm like, you got any more photos? And he's like, nope. And you're not going to get them. So,
Right.
you know, I kind of look at it, and I started drawing it up, and you know, when I got it done, and I said, okay, here's what I'm thinking it looks like. And he's like, boy, that's spot on accurate. So, you know, I kind of cleaned it up a little bit and sent it to him, and I said, here you go. You got the only copy of a 500 series American LaFrance print that I know
No
of.
kidding.
You know?
That's cool.
So, you know, it's not the original, but it's pretty dang
So you're
cool.
generally doing modern trucks as opposed to antiques?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that your choice? Or
No,
is
it's
that people?
just whatever comes up.
Market's
Yeah.
driving it.
Yeah.
And how far out are you, man? I want to order one. When am I going to get it?
I hate to say this, but we're not taking orders now. I'm
Yeah.
3.5 years behind.
That is incredible.
So,
You need more kids.
absolutely. That's what I need. Yeah, the guys were kind of joking, like, so when you come back from the East Coast, what are we going to do? Start building, you know, ladders out in the bay and bumpers in
Yeah.
the kitchen? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, that's how it is. But, yeah, you know, I'm not sure where we're going to go, you know, with it. You know, I know we're still going to build them. I just don't know. Like, part of me wants to get into the retirement gig and doing stuff for retirement, because, like, I had a guy called me up. He was from College Station, Texas.
Yep.
He goes, yeah, the department gives us $500, and I don't want one of them stupid axes. I want one of your trucks. I'm like, all right, well, what do you want? You know, and, you know, we were able to, you know, build him that truck for him. So, you know, that may be an avenue. We might just go solely into fundraising. We might just go, hey, we're only doing 10 trucks this year. We'll put it on like Facebook, and you got to bid for the slot. I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
That's so far down the road.
I get it.
You know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. See where it takes us.
I think it's fantastic, man. It's you know, it's so exciting to be on the outside looking into a quality product driven by incredible people, and then you see that the demand is there, and it's just doing so much good. Not only are you doing the fundraisers, but it is putting a few bucks in your pocket, rightfully so. And it's falling in love with a hobby. I mean, one thing is most guys that are career firemen found their love. You know, they're career firemen. They love being a fireman.
Right.
But then outside of it, to have a hobby like this, where you actually, this is your sanity, most days.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely.
where you know you have such passion and love for it. There's something to be said for that. And just looking at these two pieces and talking with you today, getting to know you and your son today, has just been an incredible day for me. And for the rest of the guys, I'm sure. But, well, we're going to shoot some more content, but I think we're going to wrap the episode. But we need to talk about one more thing. Your sample board.
Well, yeah.
People always want to know, right? So two things, right? One, they don't come painted. Don't even ask.
Nope.
They're not coming painted.
Nope.
They're natural.
Right. You lose all the detail if you
You
paint
lose, and I agree with that 100%.
And there's a lot of detail.
Absolutely. But secondly is, how do you get the print or the graphics or the drawing done?
So a lot of people think it's a sticker. It's not actually a sticker.
Right.
What is actually carved out. So I don't know how well this is going to show up on your camera, but we've got the Tiller Time logo here. So when it's cut out, you can see that you can see the pattern that's cut.
Right.
And then we smear a whole bunch of putty on it and filler, and then we sand it, and then that's how that gets done out. So
So every one of these little details on this truck is actually
it's carved in the wood.
carved into the wood.
Yep.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, I go through a lot of filler at my house.
Wow.
So I think the local Home Depot's probably the only one. They're like, yeah, for some reason we sell about 100 jars of that filler every month. You know,
Gee, I wonder who that
it's
is.
just that one store kind of a thing. So, yeah, so
But again, that's the attention to detail that's on these. And we're going to do some close-up imagery and so on in a few minutes here of these trucks. But I just, really, I just want to say thank you. One, your generosity for the fundraiser, and then the generosity of bringing a tiller home for us, which is just so cool. A little backstory real quick is, the whole tiller time thing was always something I played with in my head. And I said, as National Fire Radio, trying to get some branding and marketing out there, like looking for that little hook, if you will.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, it's tiller time. It kind of just worked, And I don't know if anybody's ever done that before or like had, that, I'm sure that saying's been around or whatever, but to do what we did with it and to come up with the logo on it, we have an incredible logo guy on Instagram, BT Create, who just does incredible work for us. He does all our logos. He's like, well, what kind of truck do you want? He's not even a fireman. He knows nothing about firefighting, but he's just a graphic artist and he does incredible work. So I'm like, and I didn't know what kind of tiller I wanted. Like when I did this 2 years ago, I'm like, I have no idea. So really it was Google Images, and I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at different types of tillers, and I know I wanted an old school and so on. And then just something about that out front.
Yep.
The rounded front with the extended wheel wells. And it just, for me, the nostalgia, I mean, I grew up in the fire service in the 90s, so I didn't get to ride on, 60s rigs, if you will.
Right.
But I did ride on some open cab apparatus or canopy top. I get corrected all the time now with open cab.
Yeah.
Well, you guys had canopy tops. We had second to the last Aaron's Fox. That was
You're also 100 years old.
It didn't even have a top.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's great when it was snowing.
So, yeah, no, it wasn't. But so it was that thing. So I settled on the Alf with the Mars light in the front because it was unique. It just set it apart. But then so that was a Google image. So somebody owned that truck that I sampled it off of, and then you bring it fast forward. We were talking about it when you offered to do it, and we were talking about the details of it. You really educated me as to the background on this tiller and the details that go with it, and what year. The fact it's the 900 series. It's mid to late 60s. You think?
I think that's about the era.
And so on. So I mean, it's just super cool to see it just come full circle from a graphic image that we use for branding and marketing to to a physical product. Is just incredible. But I can't thank you enough for your generosity, your friendship. I'm looking forward to doing so much with you down the road, and whatever we can do to help you promote this incredible product and to get it out there, because I really think you're doing incredible things for the fire service. And they're beautiful, and you're documenting history, and I love it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having us here.
Awesome.
It was definitely a great journey for us.
Cool. And
very excited to
enjoy the rest of your road trip. You still got a few days left on your
2,000 miles to go, baby.
2,000 miles to go. On your way to go drop this beautiful Dale City aerial scope off at Seagrave.
Yep.
And shout out to Dale City, who you were down there yesterday.
Yep.
Dropping off the twin. So you made two of them. But just incredible. And you're so gracious, and you're a true gentleman. And I wish you the best with the rest of your career. 34 years on the job. And I'm sure you got a couple left in you, I hope.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Good. And you have an open invite here anytime. And Charles, thanks for joining us too, pal.
Yeah.
But thank you. Great storytelling.
Thank you.
Good luck. Tell me where everybody can find you. They can see your works of art on social media.
Right. We got an Instagram account, Facebook account, which is the Six Finger Firemen, and then a website. We do all the updates on the truck only on the Instagram account. So when we buy real trucks, it's always neat when the factory sends you photos. So we kind of try to mimic that same thing too. It goes quick. When we build it, most people figure, it's going to take like 3 or 4 weeks. Once the build starts happening, it goes pretty fast. So, but yeah, that's where we keep all the updates from that standpoint. So it'll keep my daughter busy as the social media person.
There it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, brother, family business. I love it. I appreciate and cherish your friendship. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, thank you. Go check out our friend. Six Finger Woodworking Fireman.
Six Finger Firemen Woodworking.
See,
it's right there.
Six Finger Woodworking Fireman.
Well, no, you got to read it the other way.
All right. Well, I keep. I'm sorry.
Now that makes sense why you guys.
See, well, you're wearing it, so it's like, all right, I get it.
Here, right here.
So perfect. Six Finger Firemen Woodworking.
Right.
Check them out. Incredible product. So, Rob, take us out of here.
I can't.
He can't.
That's just it's too much with the truck in front of us. This is
Tucker, wrap us up.
Yeah, give it a shot.
All right.
Beautiful.
Thank you for everybody watching from National Fire Radio. Rob, Jeremy, Tucker, thank you very much.